maybe we should write a real test for one of the handlers to see what that looks like with Prisma, and then we can try something else. So let's do that. So I'm gonna go to handlers, and let's actually write a real test here versus what's actually happening. So let's bring in that user. So we can bring in star as user from user. Cool. And I want to test on the user that we can actually create a new user. Let's do that. So I'll say it should create a new user. Okay, and I'll say async. So I'll say, oh, user equals, oh, I can't say user. New user equals, oh wait, user dot create new user. And if you look at this, it expects a request, a response, and next, okay? So you can like, basically, this function doesn't know that it's in Express. It's just saying it needs these three things. We're the one calling the function. We can mock these three things out. We can make them be whatever we want. Like I can just look at this code and tell you that like, oh, they want the request object, and that request object needs to have a body object that has a username and a body object that's a password. Okay, cool, I'll do that. And it also needs the response to be an object with a JSON function on it. So I can do that. Like you can mock these out yourself. You can download packages that'll mock them out for you. There's a lot of ways around it. I'm just gonna mock it out myself for now so we can actually just see the result of it. So let's do that. So I need to mock out request, and I need to mock out response. So let's do that. So I'll say routes. And what's really cool is that you can actually use something called a SPY. A SPY is like a mocked piece of functionality that will tell you when some other piece of code interacted with it. We probably won't need to do that right now, but we can. So request is just an object that has a body property on it that has a username, hello, and a password. Hi. Okay. And then res is also an object that has a JSON function on it. And if we were going to make a SPY, this would be the SPY. This is what will be the SPY, because we would want to see that this was called and that it was called with like a token. And we want to see that token, right? So we can make this a SPY. We can also just like get the token from here, and then we can do an expect inside of here. We can say expect token to be truthy. We can do something like that. And then we can also say expect or assertion count or something like that. I don't know. We can tell Jest how many expectations should be called, because if this doesn't get called, that means JSON was never called, and that would be like a faulty test. So you would want to tell Jest like, oh, I should expect to see at least one expect call, if not more. That's getting deep. So we can say create user, we'll say rec, we'll say res. It needs next. I'm just gonna just do that for next. So we can do that. This isn't going to be a new user because it doesn't return anything, right? This is just a handler. It doesn't actually return anything, so it's not gonna be a new user. So really the only way we can verify that something got created was we have to do another query in the database after this ran to see if there was a user with that, or we can just look at the result of the token. One of the two. We're just gonna look at the token for now and just be naive about it. So let's see what happens. We'll do that, and then let's run the test. And yep, that one, obviously the integration test failed because we broke that one, right? Like I just never fixed it. But the unit test we just wrote passed. So it's fine. It worked. Because it actually did run this, which was expected. If I log this token, you'll actually see it, right? Well, now it's gonna break because, and I'll tell you why it's gonna break. Well, actually, anybody know why this is gonna break if I run it again? You're like, wait, it just worked. Why would it break? All you did was log something. Yeah, it's definitely gonna break. If I run this, it's not gonna pass. No? It's because I'm creating a user with the same username again, right? In a test, you want to make sure you delete the database every test run. You want a clean database. In fact, we should be using a different database for testing. You probably want a local database. You shouldn't be using a hosted database to run your tests. It's expensive. So you want a local database, and you make sure you clean the database. You delete everything after every single run. And the way you can do that is there's like before all, before each, after all, after each. Inside of those functions, you can say, delete everything I just did in this test. So when the next test runs, it's good. That's one way to do it. You can also set a configuration file in Jest that runs before all your tests run that just drops the database. But you never want to have stateful tests, whereas like there's one test that runs, it adds something to the database, and then you have another test that runs and it relies on the stuff that this thing added. You will have the worst tests ever. Like don't do that. Every test should be stateless and non-reliant on any other tests. But yeah, this is going to fail. Let's see. Oh, no, I guess not. I guess it doesn't care. It passed anyway, somehow. That should not have passed because there's already a user in there. It just passed again. Huh. I wonder if oh wait, did it log a token? No, I didn't even log a token. Actually, I think this is just a false positive. But yeah, maybe our test was never passing in the first place. And we just found out that it was just a bad test because this actually never ran and no expectations actually ran. Maybe that's what's happening. But yeah, don't put stuff in the database and not delete it during a test.
Is there a big difference having one test directory over having tests everywhere? What are the pros and cons?
You'll have smaller test files. Yeah, that's probably the biggest pro. Smaller test files and smaller test files, and then you would probably be able to configure different options for different tests if they were individually grouped versus putting them all together and adding the options to all the tests. So more flexibility. And then in a bigger app, just anything that's more abstract away is usually easier. So different teams can work on different things without, conflicts. The last thing you want is a merge conflict on a test file. That is the worst merge conflict because it's like you don't want to touch it because all those tests were passing like for a whole year straight, and now you got a merge conflict in there, and it's like I don't want to touch this file. Somebody come save me, because if you try to fix that merge conflict and you break a test, good luck. It's gonna be a bad day.